I've been a lawyer for about 17 years. The majority of that time I've been with a law firm out of Austin currently called Almanza, Blackburn, Dickey, and Mitchell. And my primary focus during that time is to represent real estate brokers and real estate agents. And I do it not just in lawsuits, but I also help agents in front of the commission. I also help agents in commission disputes as well. So I've been doing that for roughly 15, 16 years. Obviously my biggest client is Keller Williams Realty. I've represented Keller Williams in Austin, San Antonio, Dallas, sometimes occasionally here in Houston, Midland, Lubbock, Amarillo, El Paso, all the way down to Harlingen. So I get around the state of Texas and get to represent folks when they need help in litigation matters. As a result of doing that, several years ago, I noticed that there was a real hole in the process, that everybody involved in a real estate sale has protection in the event that lawsuits or legal matters come up after closing. The agents have E&O insurance, the inspector has E&O insurance, and the buyer is always the one making the claim, right? So they usually have a contingency fee lawyer, or they have a lawyer that's ultimately going to get paid for by one of the other parties. The only one that doesn't have any protection is the seller. They have to not only find their own lawyer, they have to pay for their own lawyer. And I think, frankly, that kind of is one of the reasons that what Marilyn said is so absolutely true. They have a lot of financial pressure on themselves when that happens to reach out and blame. Their motivation, and their lawyers always tell them, look, your agent has E&O insurance. If it's the agent's fault, or if we blame the agent, a big insurance company is going to write a check. Your agent's not going to write a check anyway. So they have a lot of pressure put on them to find other pockets. So that was how I kind of frankly came up with the idea to develop this product that I'm here to talk to you about today. And in short, it is a legal services contract for sellers of residential real estate. They pay a fee, and in return for that fee, they get two big picture things. Number one, they get protection. We will hire a lawyer for them and provide up to 80 hours of lawyer time, which has a value of roughly $20,000 that will come in and defend that seller. And then the second thing they get, which was frankly kind of one of those weird circumstances of putting a product together, we came up with a concept that we could help avoid lawsuits altogether. So we helped them get access to data and information that will hopefully help them fill out the seller's disclosure notice and avoid claims altogether. Somebody asked me this morning, Maud, is that right? Maud asked me this morning, is this for me or is this for sellers? Oh. And I said, well, truthfully, it's for both. Yeah. Because I think that if a claim is avoided, if a lawsuit is avoided, then it helps not only the seller, but it helps the realtors as well. So let me show you I want to start by showing you a short video about our product.
Everyone wants to feel protected, especially when entering into the biggest transaction in their life. Hi, my name is Bo Blackburn, and I'm one of the founders of Sellers Shield. Did you know the seller is the only party involved in the sale of their own home, left unprotected when legal matters arise after closing? Brokers and inspectors have insurance that provide them with a highly qualified and experienced real estate lawyer. Without a Sellers Shield, the seller is the only one left to find and pay for their own lawyer. When your seller buys a legal service contract from Sellers Shield, we will find him a skilled attorney and pay up to $20,000 in attorney's fees.
Sellers Shield will cost $240 and will be funded directly out of closing proceeds.
Recently, after selling my home, I was sued by the buyer claiming I had improperly disclosed structural repairs. My homeowner's policy refused to provide coverage. My umbrella policy also refused. I was left totally unprotected.
In addition to the peace of mind and protection afforded to the seller, the Shield is actually going to help eliminate lawsuits. Why, you ask? Well, you know better than anyone the myriad of pitfalls and problems created for agents and sellers with the Texas mandated seller's disclosure notice. How can Sellers Shield help? Once purchased, we send your seller an individual login code to view an informative video explaining the purpose of the seller's disclosure notice, how it is used against them in lawsuits, and some common mistakes made by sellers. This means Sellers Shield will actually help protect you and your broker.
I really like the extra protection Sellers Shield will give to my clients. The video and frequently asked questions are put together by experts, and I think it'll be a great tool for my sellers.
With the Shield, your sellers are protected from buyers for 2 years. If your seller is sued after closing, the only phone call you're going to get is from your seller thanking you for introducing them to Sellers Shield.
Important that you understand just a little bit about who we are, and I promise it's just a little bit. Our team, or the folks that put this product together, primarily comes from 2 areas. One area is folks like myself who are real estate litigators. The other part of our team is a gentleman who has been a lifetime E&O, real estate E&O insurance broker and a real estate underwriter. And he was instrumental in helping us kind of figure out how to put the program together and hopefully make it work for us and for sellers. The other part of our team is, like I said, real estate litigators, which is me and 2 other folks. And then also I serve on the TREC Broker Lawyer Committee and have now for, I think 2, almost 3 years. So why do I think that's important? I hope that it makes people feel a little bit better that it's truly people that have been involved in the industry, your industry, for a combined about 80 years. We have about combined 80 years of experience dealing with these kind of issues. All right, how is it supposed to work? Number one, it's a legal services contract. People ask me, is this insurance? It's not insurance, it's a legal services contract. The fee, you heard it was between $175 and $275. The fee for Houston is $240. Here's kind of the cool part about it is we only get paid if there's a closing. Does that sound familiar? Mm-hmm. Right? It's like you guys. We get paid if there's a closing. If somebody commits to use our product and for whatever reason there's no closing, that's okay. We don't get paid. How does it work from a procedural standpoint? We have a couple of ways. We have good old-fashioned, for folks of you like me who like paper, we've got a paper application form that you or the seller can fill out and email it in, fax it in, scan it in, whatever is the easiest way to do it. And then we also have a website that's sellershield.com, and you saw that in the previous slide, that it's frankly extremely easy to go on the website and submit it. I put one in yesterday and it takes about 20 seconds. So it's pretty quick and easy to do. There's some very basic questions about the address, that kind of stuff that goes in. And once it goes in, then we're responsible to keep track of how your transaction's going. We may send you some email reminders, do you have a closing date yet? Let us know when you have a closing date. Other than that, it's pretty simple. Once we get an order, then what we're going to do is we're going to send you and your seller an email with a link to a video that's going to help them fill out the seller's disclosure notice. You may have heard me mention there's some that we kind of learned that we can help avoid lawsuits. That video is what I'm talking about. And as I've already said, you get up to 80 hours of legal time with a value of roughly $20,000. When? To me, the when part is really important. From my perspective, I think it should be done before the seller fills out the seller's disclosure notice, because a big part of what we're offering is help with that. So to me, if I was a listing agent and I was talking about this, I would want to do it towards the end of your presentation, right before you talk about the seller's disclosure notice, which has always been a difficult thing. I mean, I'm sure Marilyn's taught this. I've always taught this. When you're in a listing presentation and you're going to deal with the seller's disclosure notice, what I've always taught my agents is tell them about it, give it to them, and then quickly and politely get out of the house before they start filling out the seller's disclosure notice. And there's lots of reasons, and I could spend literally an hour, Marilyn knows I could spend an hour talking about why that's the right way to do it. But the short version is, if you help them fill out the seller's disclosure notice, it becomes the seller and agent disclosure notice, and you take on liability that you don't necessarily need or want to take on. So what we've developed here is I think, a nice way to make that conversation. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, this is something that I really want you to watch this video that you're going to get if you buy this product. They have some frequently asked questions, and one of the things on the video, I've seen the video, Miss Seller, and one of the things it tells you is you need to slow down. You need to sleep on this document before you fill it out. So I think it gives you a real nice and artful way to get out of the house before they start filling out the seller's disclosure notice. So let me show you that video.
Everyone wants to feel protected, especially when entering into the biggest transaction in their life. Hi, my name is Bo Blackburn, and I'm one of the founders of Sellers Shield. Did you know the seller is the only party involved in the sale of their own home, left unprotected when legal matters arise after closing? Brokers and inspectors have insurance that provide them with a highly qualified and experienced real estate lawyer. Without a Sellers Shield, the seller is the only one left to find and pay for their own lawyer. Once the seller buys a legal service contract from Sellers Shield, we will find him a skilled attorney and pay up to $20,000 in attorney's fees.
Sellers Shield will cost $240 and will be funded directly out of closing proceeds.
Recently, after selling my home, I was sued by the buyer, claiming I had improperly disclosed structural repairs. My homeowner's policy refused to provide coverage. My umbrella policy also refused. I was left totally unprotected.
In addition to the peace of mind and protection afforded to the seller, the Shield is actually going to help eliminate lawsuits. Why, you ask? Well, you know better than anyone the myriad of pitfalls and problems created for agents and sellers with the Texas mandated seller's disclosure notice. How can Sellers Shield help? Once purchased, we send the seller an individual login code to view an informative video explaining the purpose of the seller's disclosure notice, how it is used against you in lawsuits, and some common mistakes made by sellers. This means Sellers Shield will actually help protect you and your broker. With the Shield, you've made a great decision to protect yourself and your well-being.
So just everybody understands, the first video is really a video that we use to explain to agents what our product is. That video is the one that we want sellers to watch before they fill out their seller's disclosure notice. Yes, ma'am?
Is that first phone call if they have any questions covered under the Shield?
No, the Shield is not providing any help to them other than the video and the frequently asked questions until and after closing. However, look, I've gotten probably 10 calls so far from folks that have bought our product, and if they have a real simple, easy question, I just answer the question. In fact, I want to tell you a quick story from our, it sounds like I'm making this up. I wasn't a Boy Scout. If I was, I'd say Scout's honor. See, I'm telling the truth. I wasn't a Boy Scout. I call most of our sellers that have bought the product so far to thank them and just say, try to do some customer service. Why did you buy it? What about it do you like? And the very first seller I called was doing that process, got to the video and said, did you watch the video? Did you find it helpful? And a very sweet lady in San Antonio said, oh, yes. And she got, frankly, she was kind of annoyed with me calling her until we got to that point. And she said, yes, I very much like the video, and I'm so glad you called because I want to tell you what happened. I watched the video. It reminded me that when it rains, that my basement floods sometimes, and I didn't put that on the seller's disclosure notice. So after I watched the video, I called my agent, asked my agent to send me a new seller's disclosure notice, and I disclosed it on the seller's disclosure notice. Who knows if anything would have happened, but I feel like that I avoided a problem because of watching the video. Very first seller I called that was the interaction I had with the seller. It gave me goosebumps at the time. It gives me goosebumps to tell the story because for me, I'm kind of a law nerd. I'm kind of a risk management nerd. Marilyn knows that about me. I think that was something that was really cool. I think we helped her avoid a problem. So that's kind of the feedback we're getting from sellers. The feedback that we're getting from agents has surprised me, and I'm not pushing this. The feedback that we've gotten from a lot of agents, especially in Dallas, I don't know how it's going to be here in Houston, but in Dallas, the agents seem to like the product so much that they're wanting to buy it and kind of gift it to the seller. And again, I'm not pushing that. In Dallas, the market is maybe a little bit different. They see it as the feedback we keep getting there is that it gives them an advantage to go out and get a listing. Bluntly, I think the seller should buy it, but if the agents want to buy it, I certainly won't stop that from happening. But they seem to really like it as a way to distinguish themselves, especially in the early phase right now, because we've only been going to Keller Williams offices, and they think that they can go out and say, look, we're the only one that's presenting this right now. So
Or tell them in Houston that they're the first one.
that's right. That's exactly right. Because of Marilyn, Marilyn and I met a month or so ago about this, and she said, well, will you come make presentations to my office in Houston? I said, be happy to. We haven't launched officially in Houston, so you guys truly are one of the very first folks to hear about our product in Houston. Had anybody heard about it before today? Okay, I wouldn't think so. I mean, we've not done any marketing here. Literally, this is our first effort to get the product off the ground here in Houston. So that's kind of the feedback we're getting from sellers and from agents. Truth of the matter is, we're just real excited to be out there. We're real excited to have the response we've had so far. We've actively been marketing it in San Antonio, Austin, and Dallas. In Houston, we're going to start actively marketing it in April. So that's kind of where we are. Thank you. I really appreciate you having me here. Anybody have any questions?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, before your questions, just want to ask you, so here's the deal. Until your client's transaction closes, you can get this. You know what I'm saying? It's like if you've got a closing this week, you can get them the Sellers Shield, okay? And that's important for you to know. Like I said, I'm very grateful that they are coming from Austin to do this. They know how important risk management is to the operations that I work for, and this is great. But Bo, let me ask you
Good point.
this. Say, for instance, I have a buyer, and of course he falls in love with this for sale by owner. Have they ever done that? Yes. Could that be something I could offer that for sell by owner seller?
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm telling you, this is
That's a
how
good idea,
you
Marilyn.
think forward thinking about how issues come up. I know from experience for sell by owners, they are very difficult to deal with during the transaction. They're impossible to deal with after closing. Okay, so I just want you to kind of get
That's a
that
good
thought
thought.
too.
I hadn't thought about that. That's a
Yeah.
great thought.
Yeah.
And thank you for reemphasizing, this can absolutely be bought up until the time of closing. And we had somebody, because we're new, we had somebody closed and call it and heard about it, and they called me the next day. I accommodated that. That's not ideally how it should work, but we're trying to get out there and make sure that everybody knows about our product. So if you're pre-closing, or even if you've just maybe closed one today or yesterday, let me know. I would be happy to help. Yes, ma'am.
That's exactly what I want to know is after the fact. Is there any help for that?
Not really. I mean, if they just closed, I might talk to them, but other than that,
That
no.
would be a just.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Obviously, there's a need for it, or you wouldn't have created the product, but how many sales result in a lawsuit?
Great question. That's one of the first questions we always get. And I have to tell you, it's different for region to region. In West Texas, there's very few lawsuits. Okay. In San Antonio, there's a ton of lawsuits. And Houston is somewhere in between. But generally speaking, the number is like 1 in 400, 1 in 500, 1 in 300. And in West Texas, it's like more like 1 in 1,000. But depending on the region you're in, depending on how many lawyers are there, that's a big one.
Court system too.
The court system, and then the buyer, the sophistication. Most lawsuits, I think, actually come from the sophistication level of the buyer more than, because people. One of the objections we get is, look, I'm going to do it right. I can fill this form out right, and therefore I don't need any help. That is big wrong. because first of all, like I've already said, it's the buyer most of the time that is bringing, frankly, we think, a frivolous claim. So just because you fill it out right, that doesn't mean you don't need the product. I think it's the opposite.
And also, how did you come up with the 80 hours? Is that what you find to typically
Thank
cover?
you. That's the second question. You got the first and the second question. From our E&O underwriting side of our company, they have access to information that I don't have. Generally speaking, and this is very general, an average claim costs about $14,000 to $15,000. So we wanted to go beyond what an average is. Now, is that going to cover everything? No. There's going to be times where people need to go beyond what we're offering, and they'll have to come out of pocket and pay for it. But are there also times where it'll be less than that? Yes. So we wanted to get it right into that sweet spot and a little bit beyond it, which is what we did. And the short answer is yes. Most claims come between 11 months and 14 months. So we would, again, just want to go beyond that. So we had most things covered. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of fraud. Well, the biggest one is DTPA. That's always the one they lead with, is deceptive. It's called Deceptive Trade Practices Act, and then negligence. Those are the first. Exactly. Yeah, and remember, what our product is designed to do is to give them a lawyer. It's not designed to pay for any damages that they may be responsible for. We're just dealing with the first part of the problem. But yes, it's DTPA, negligence misrepresentation, and fraud is almost always included as well. The normal lawsuit is the buyer is almost always the one bringing it, and then they sue the seller, the listing agent, the buyer's agent, and the inspector. That's the normal cast in a residential real estate lawsuit. All of those people are protected except one. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
Are you on your own after 2 years?
Yes, yeah. The coverage lasts for 2 years, and then they're on their own. Yes, ma'am.
So you don't have an agent shield portion?
Pardon me?
You don't have an agent shield?
Well, I think, to be honest, I think that ours is an agent shield. I really do. Like that example I gave you, that agent was going to, if the buyer moved in and then the first time it rained and it flooded, that listing agent was going to get sued. Okay, and we think we avoided that for the agent, just like the seller. That's why you asked me this morning, and I said, well, it's kind of both. Now, you have a shield already. Your E&O provides you with a shield.
But if you are an agent and you are selling your own property and you've listed with another agent in the office and you personally are a seller, you only wear one hat in the transaction, and that's going to be a seller's hat. So that means you have no E&O protection, period. You get this.
We've had two, that has happened twice already since December, where we've had an agent selling their own house and they called me and bought it.
Oh, amen. I mean, I have a condo in Port Aransas, but it will have it. Because, again, I know as a seller, I don't have a hat other than the seller's hat to wear. And I know of the difference between, I understand totally what goes in from their side to investigate and examine and research and try and find case law that will assist you're fighting this lawsuit. There's a lot, people don't understand, there's a lot of time in it. It's much like your clients who think you make millions for doing nothing, and yet you have to do so much to find that property, research there. You know what I'm saying? You don't see that, and that takes a lot of time, and that clock starts ticking for the billing.
One of the things that we're working on and that I want to distribute to anybody who has any interest in it is we're working on a electronic and paper version of documents that we can kind of insert into your listing presentation. We've been asked that by a lot of listing agents. If anybody has any interest in receiving that, you can just shoot an email to this email address that's on here. I think it's orders@Sellers Shield. Or if anybody has any interest, I'll give you my card and you can shoot me an email.
We can put that in Dotloop.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, because they all use Dotloop.
Awesome.
Another question. I have a listing that is presently a homestead, but it sits on a piece of property that the neighborhood's all commercial. So very likely we're going to get a commercial contract. Will this cover any commercial? Or
Is it occupied, owner occupied,
owner occupied?
on a house?
House.
Yes, we'd cover
But
that.
we probably will get a commercial contract because the value's in the land.
That's fine.
but we could still have coverage.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And just think, if you take your closing to Metco, you may get it as a gift.
Okay, I really appreciate you having me. I'm going to hang out for a while. If anybody wants any more information, I'm hanging out and listening to Marilyn.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure.